The Joe Rogan Experience.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Any other subjects you want to cover?
Why don't you ask me about immigration? Because I know that that's something that's disturbed you.
Well, what are your thoughts on immigration? On what's going on with...
Here's the background of my kind of assumptions. During the last 10 years of his life, I worked very closely with Cesar Chavez. And I worked with, he had two issues. He had pesticides, which were a huge issue with him, and that's what I worked with him on the dangers that, his workers were experiencing from pesticides. And the other issue he had was immigration. He wanted to shut down the border because he saw the way that it was impairing this huge influx of illegal migration across the border, was impairing his ability to get to bargain, to leverage good wages and conditions for his workers. When I grew up, the Democratic Party was against immigration, and it was the Republican Party who wanted it because the big corporations wanted cheap labor. The Chamber of Commerce was firmly embedded in the Republican Party, and they were all about open borders. Today, the Chamber of Commerce is with the Democratic Party. And so it's one of these switches that is kind of inexplicable to me. But I think, again, it happened because President Trump said, I'm going to fix it with a wall. And that became, and that suddenly became open borders, suddenly became a calling card for the Democratic Party. But there's a reason, and I see it in my agency, the cost that it's imposing on our country and on health care. Diminishing health care for Americans and housing and jobs and all of these places where it hurts us. We need workers in here and we need legal immigrants in here, but they should come in legally, and every country has to do that. President Trump ran on this issue. He ran that he's going to enforce it and deport particularly the bad people. This is what you don't hear. 70% of the people that they've arrested have criminal records. What the Democrats are always saying is, only 14% of them have been convicted of a violent crime. Well, they've been convicted. But a lot of them, the other ones, have been arrested, and they just haven't been convicted yet because they jumped, bail, or they jumped their warrants. The other 30%, a lot of them are gang members. When they go looking for an immigrant, they're not just randomly searching, restaurants. They're going after particular people who they've gotten their names from local law enforcement and from others. During the during the Obama administration, President Obama deported more people than President Trump did, the most in history. Nobody cared. And there were 76 people shot during that process, during the Biden administration. None of it made headlines. About half of those people were killed. None of it made the news. Now, because it's Trump doing it, you have the entire Democratic Party and the media establishment saying, look at the horrible things. He's a dictator, but he's doing what he promised to do to the American people. It's very disturbing watching what you see on TV. The thing that makes it most disturbing is because there's so much interaction with protesters, which is weird that the Democrats are telling protesters to go out there and stop law enforcement from doing its job. That's not how protests usually work. If you don't like U.S. drug policy, which you don't, and a lot of people don't like the war on drugs at all. They think it's counterproductive. You wouldn't send people to try and interfere with people who are arresting a drug dealer. And when you have thousands and thousands of people doing that, there's going to be thousands of interactions, and some of those are going to end badly because you have armed people doing dangerous things. And when you have crowds doing that, it's going to blow up. And so, I see this, nobody is happy with the way that things have looked, particularly in Minnesota. But a lot of it is because of this capacity of the press to take Trump derangement syndrome and amplify it into public outrage and set up a situation. I mean, if you're a dad, I wouldn't send my kids out to interfere with a law enforcement operation. There's other ways to protest. So I think that, I think now they're pulling out of Minnesota and they're going to do this, in other states where they're not going to get that kind of crowd interaction. But a lot of the people that they're arresting are not, they're people who are actually, have, like I said, 70% have had criminal records.
Yeah, we've actually covered that here. And then there's also the issue that this is the first time in history that the border has been wide open for 4 years. It's a different thing. It's a different thing when you have at least 10 million people. They don't even know how many for real.
It could be 20 million.
They don't know. And that's a lot. And to have that happen all at once is pretty crazy. What disturbs people is, again, obviously these violent interactions. What should disturb them is that these are not organic protests. So these protests are organized and paid for. And that's crazy.
Right.
When you find that out and you find out that people can actually be paid to protest and that they provide them with signs, they tell them what they do, it's organized, they have signal chats. There's been a lot of people online talking about being paid to protest in certain places. And that's kind of insane that that's even legal, that you can organize a mob and pay them to go and make a bunch of noise.
It's like the color revolution.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that it happened.
They're doing it here.
Just happened to take place in the place where hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud was being exposed. So then the narrative completely shifts away from the fraud and onto this unnecessary violence with ICE. And then there's the natural thing that people have, this distrust of people wearing masks. They don't like that. They don't like officers wearing masks. But on the other side, have to wear masks because they're being doxxed and their families are being threatened, and you're filming everything they do, and you're these organized instigators. So if it wasn't for organized protest, I wonder if those particular interactions would have even happened, would have even taken place. And I know you're saying that they're targeting specific people. They're going after bad people, but also they're showing up at Home Depot and just grabbing people too and trying to find out if someone is a bad guy or a good guy. So there's probably a lot of people that are just people that got duped into coming to this country thinking they're going to be welcomed, and then they come over here and they're trying to get jobs, and now they're getting arrested and deported. It wasn't their fault that they were encouraged and brought into this country, but they did break the law. And I understand that perspective. But it's kind of insane that no one is pointing the blame at the fact that they let at least 10 million people people into this country over the last 4 years, at least being charitable. It's kind of nuts.
And I was down at the border, and during my presidential campaign, I went down there, and I went down a bunch of times. But the first night I went down there to Tucson, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like the Boston Marathon, the beginning of it, just the sheer number. And they were, they all had it planned. The cartels were all, running the whole thing. They were advertising all over the world and bringing people in. And everybody the Border Patrol was completely demoralized. They were told, don't arrest anybody. Just fingerprint them. If they're a criminal, turn them back. But, most of these people, they couldn't figure that out. And otherwise put them on a bus or a plane to anywhere they wanted to go in the country. So it was just... and
at the same time, you have legitimate people that are doing it the right way that have to go through a long and difficult, lengthy process to attain citizenship and to come here or get a green card and come here.
Right. The whole thing was crazy. And one of the complicated issues that you have now, a bunch of sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. And it used to be that if somebody who was an illegal immigrant was arrested for a crime and put in the local jail, ICE was notified. So ICE would then come and local law enforcement would transfer it to ICE. In the sanctuary cities, they don't do that. They just let them go. And, it's not...
How is that legal? That seems insane. That seems like it's a violation.
Because it was never a law. It was just a policy when, that law enforcement always cooperated with each other. Now, because Trump's in there, they're saying, okay, we would rather take the the side of a criminal, then take the side of the president. So they're choosing sides, and it's like the other day during the State of the Union speech when President Trump said. He was talking about immigration, and he said, please stand up if you think that law enforcement should protect the American people over illegal immigrants, and not a single Democrat stood.
Yeah.
How can you do that?
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier, what you were saying. It's just they're ideologically captured. Yeah, I mean, that should be something. If you want to be taken seriously, you're a reasonable person, you would stand up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really disturbs people when you see masked people grabbing people and arresting people, and a lot of them turn out to be American citizens. That's part of the problem too. But I did look at a chart recently because I thought it was fascinating. The number of American citizens that were arrested, what percentage during what Obama did versus during Trump. It's actually, I think, higher. More American citizens were arrested during this Obama thing. You just never heard about it. Also, if you hear Obama talk about immigration, if you hear Hillary talk about immigration, or if you hear Bill talk about immigration, you would swear they were running for president as a Republican. Like, if you listen to the things they were saying back then, it was very much the Republican perspective.
Well, that was the Democratic Party always was against an open border.
Yeah, Bernie even said it's like open borders that's a Republican idea. They want cheap labor. Yeah,